me, in the beginning, I tried meditations. And I tried to really calm my inner child and see him and talk to him. And the first thing I noticed was that, hi guys, welcome back. As you know, my name is Jao Yachai, like into my healers. And we're back with another episode and another Q&A.
Mm-hmm. So I was thinking, and I would love to talk about the subject of walking your path and knowing what your purpose is and all of those things, how people look at it, what it means to you, especially the part where people are trying to find out what their path is and how to walk it.
Oh, this is a good one. Okay, I think, this is what I believe, that you're always on the path. But it's just a matter of how fast you're accelerating on the path. And the more you fight it, the more you stay stuck. And there's no acceleration. So it's, this term of going with the flow. I feel like the flow is already carrying you on your path, even if you cannot see it in that moment. You know, we can all, from this point of view, look back into our past and say like, oh, that was meant to happen. But I bet you if you go 5 years back, you know, that shitty douchebag that you were in a relationship with, or that shitty job or whatever, that at that moment you thought, what the fuck, this sucks, I want to walk my path. But if you look back at it now, you're like, you know what, I had to do that because it taught me this and this and this and this and this, and it prepared me for whatever it is that I'm going through right now. But then you have, of course, the path is not a straight line, you know, it's like ups and downs and ups and downs. And oftentimes we doubt if we're on the path when it gets the most difficult. But I feel like that's when you're the most deep in it, when everything around you is going to shit, forcing you to let the old die, to stop taking control, stop blaming people, and start looking in the mirror. Like the topic we had about last time, responsibility, when life is really pushing you to that edge and you're on that, you know, slippery slope thinking, can I do this? Can I take this? This is too much. This is just the phase where you're growing, when your path is doing this. You're in that zone. And I feel like most people, it takes a while until you realize that.
Mm-hmm. And then a lot of people are always questioning, like, am I walking the right path? What is the way I need to go? Do I need to go left? Do I need to go right? Do I need to just keep walking straight ahead? And I see where you're coming from when you're saying you're always on the right path because it's your path and you're walking it.
Yeah.
But how does one
make the more down-to-earth decisions on whether to stay or leave?
Yes.
Yeah. So I feel like even that transitioning is part of your path. Being in a place you don't belong and then making the choice, I'm not going to go here, I'm going to do something else, that's still the path, whether you make that decision or not. But usually it has to do with the desire of the heart. See, when the desire of the heart suddenly starts speaking and saying, hey, I want to grow, then it's going to force you to make choices. Such as, I'm working this shitty job, it's not giving me anything, I need to move here because it's not making me happy. Repeat your question.
That I want to give people some advice on when they're looking at their path currently or struggling with it. Like, what should they do? How can they feel more at ease within finding what their path is? I know there isn't really finding, but do you know what I mean?
I think I do. I think I can only speak from my experience, right?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like what I always do is two things. The first part is just the rational part. What do I need for my survival, right? Something I had to do in the past a lot. Maybe you have rent to pay, you have mouths to feed, you're responsible for this and this and this. So if you don't like your job, you cannot just quit. You have to build a foundation of, you know what, I'm going to keep working here. I'm just going to suck it up. In the meantime, I'm going to search for something else that's going to bring an income. So that's going to be the first step, just setting your foundation. Because if you're stressed, for example, about your finances or your relationship, blah, blah, then you're not going to be able to tune in and make a proper decision on how to shift your path, right? You need to kind of blur out the noise, whether it's finances or relationship. You need to cancel that out first before you take the next big decision. And that second step, that next big decision, how I come to that is I check in with my inner child. Because my inner child can always tell me whether something I want is from here or from here. So I remember, I was very interested in history, so much so that I wanted to go and become a professor at the University of Amsterdam to give history classes. And I loved teaching, and I loved digging and going into the topics and stuff. But you're bound to a curriculum. You can only teach kids A, B, C, and you cannot go outside of the box. So obviously, in that moment, you're in a clash with yourself, because for a long time I chose that was going to be my path. But now suddenly, with the signs that I'm getting, it chose not to be. So what do I do? See, then you come in conflict with the part of, okay, do I just step out of it? Because many people are going to have an opinion. Oh, you stepped out of school, blah, blah, blah. That was my thought process at the time. So that was the noise. And I had to cancel out that noise first and be like, no, you know what? Okay, it doesn't matter what I do. In the worst case scenario, if I don't study, what am I going to do for a job? So at least then I'll be busy with something and building something. So meanwhile, while doing the study, I searched for a job. And I went working in a gym and giving physical therapy. So that was the foundation I had to set. If I quit the study, I have something else immediately that I can fall back on. But then can the next question, the deciding factor, what does my inner child want? My inner child wants to share. It wants to teach. It also wants to be in a space where it can learn from others, their experiences, their opinions. Can I still do that here? What do you think my inner child told me?
In the current place you were at the time, that you probably needed more than just that?
Yeah. So I made the choice, and you make a jump. Of course, your mind is always going to be in a state of, oh my God, but this is going to be such a waste because I spent a whole year doing this study and making all these tests and learning all these things and preparing. So you're always going to have that pushback. But then you have to find a way to stay loyal to that gut feeling, to what your inner child is saying to you.
Mm-hmm.
Some people, they are disconnected from their inner child. So that's a more difficult one, because those people tend to feel like they're lost all the time. Well, my opinion is that you shouldn't be making those decisions at all. You should just be working on clearing the clutter that's in your baggage.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's an even bigger noise that you can't just cancel out by building a foundation. The voices of your past are always going to be there and trying to pull you back. Mm-hmm. So before you make any big purpose or path choices, you have to fix that first. It's just like with the saying, all right? You cannot be a healer if you haven't healed your own shit. I think the same applies here.
Yeah. And if we're talking about the inner child, how do you know where to find it?
I think it's different for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And I also think it changes over time.
Do you have an example?
Yeah. See, in modern day civilization, you're kind of pushed to become an adult. In fact, it's blown out of proportion so much by social media and the movies you watch as a kid that at some point you can't wait to be an adult. You hear many kids say it as well. I want to be an adult, I can't wait. And the funny joke is then once you're an adult, you're like, oh fuck, I wish I was a kid again. And that view of life over time is going to disconnect you from your inner child, which is why with everyone who eventually decides to go onto a healing path, that one of the chapters that they're going to have to go through is the reconnection with the inner child. for me, I'll just put it that way, when I had to reconnect with my inner child, it was very vague because at first I didn't understand what it quite was. I just saw it as, a symbolic version of who I was in the past. But then you go digging, and you learn things about, for example, authenticity. Because to walk your purpose, to find your path, and to really excel in your path, that's the number one thing that your path is all about. Becoming authentic again, so that your life can flow and the universe can guide you towards whatever is meant for you. But the more you're stuck in trying to be someone else, the more that path is cloudy, unclear, the more difficult it's to listen to your gut feeling. And like I said, the first reason why we abandon inner child is because we want to become an adult. So that's the thing also we do what we do in life, right? We try to act responsible and be people who always pay the bills on time, and we're so good at socializing, and we have these moral values, and this is the bad guy and this is the good person, which in the eyes of a child doesn't exist. So that's the first mask that we kind of put on that disconnects us from the inner child. So obviously the first thing that we have to do to get back to the inner child is try and become aware of what are the masks that I'm wearing. When I have a certain behavior with one friend, and then I have another friend, and I consider them both equal friends, but I act totally different with that friend, and that's going to be a red flag. See, if I act different with my friends than with colleagues, for example, that makes sense because I'm on work floor. I'm supposed to be a little bit more behaved, I have to maintain the status of the company and blah, blah, blah. But if I have a group of shared friends and we all consider each other equal friends of one another, then my behavior should be the same with each and every one of them. Usually it's not. Usually I'm way more fun with this friend, and with this friend I'm way more reserved, and with this friend I share my secrets, and this friend knows actually nothing about me. It's just for platonic fun. So that goes to show that there are layers to me. When in reality I should be comfortable, because they're my friends, with each and every one of them, to just be myself. And you see that with children all the time, right? If a child meets another child, the first instinctual behavior is the same with this one, with this one, with this one. It's only as they become older, adult, and they start wearing masks, that we kind of filter what we feel with each person because of their masks, and then we start reciprocating a different behavior, if that makes sense. So in the last episode we talked about this as well, having people as your mirrors, and we talked about the victim coding and taking responsibility and reflection. Well, one good thing is when you notice that your behavior changes around people that you know well and you consider yourself to be good with them, you need to ask yourself, why is my behavior changing with them? What image of myself do I want to portray towards them that isn't true? That's either based on a fear or a grief or a pain or a sorrow or anxiety or whatever. It's based on emotion, not my true state. And then you have to try and go back into the past and see, was there ever a time where I would have shown a different version of myself? And if so, how would the different version come out? Usually it's more spontaneous, and it has less of a filter. Doesn't close, the voice in fear of, oh, maybe I'm going to say something wrong, or maybe I'm going to act out something that's inappropriate. Which, by the way, if you have good friends, that should never be the case. So that already goes to show that, hey, you are wearing masks. Translating to energetics, it means you have walls around your heart. For me, the journey was seeing if I could flip that. The desired attitude that I have is to be authentic. So I have to, again, find meaning of what does that mean to me? What does it mean to be authentic? Like I said, at some point throughout your path and blah, blah, you learn that authenticity comes from being your inner child again. Because your inner child has no filters. The moment you're bubbly and laughing and going, and there's no shame and there's no guilt and there's no fear, You're fully authentic. The inner child has fully taken over. How can I bring that part of me forth again in the relationships around myself? Well, then there's the next phase. You try. At least I did. And I failed. It was almost like I had an automatic pattern that would just take over and stop me from really showing that version of myself. And then I discovered I'm trying to fix an internal problem outside of me. And that doesn't work. That never works. If I have an internal program or problem that's expressing itself outward, the way to fix it is to go back in. So some people do it differently. That's to come back to your question. Oh yeah, but how some people do it through meditations or do it through a healing session or plant medicine. There are different ways. For me, in the beginning, I tried meditations. And I tried to really calm my inner child and see him and talk to him. And the first thing I noticed was that he wasn't very happy with me. That was my first real raw moment of, oh shit, I failed my authentic self. And you have to engage in the conversation to get to know why. What is it that your inner child sees in you that you cannot yet see in yourself, or that you know you have it but you deny it? Because that's sometimes the case for people as well. They know they're acting all tough because they're inside afraid and they want to prove the world they're very strong and not afraid. But they won't, accept it. So that's something the inner child sees in you that you know as well, but you're not looking. Usually that means you're not ready to connect with your inner child. For those who are ready, you're more in the category of the first option. Your inner child sees something in you that you cannot see in yourself, but you're willing to see what it is so you can work on it. And for me, it was the part of, why are you such a show-off? My thing, I told you in the beginning of the first video as well, that my problem was I would always do this with people. Talk. Everybody I met, I had to tell great stories of all the things that happened in my life, which usually were true, because I had a crazy life and I did so many crazy things. But why do I need to vomit it all over people to give them this great view over me? So my inner child was saying, you are insecure. And by feeding that insecurity, you're distancing yourself from me. Why? And then my response was, I feel afraid to feel small. Because usually insecurity, that's what it is. You know, you feel small. You feel like you have no power and like you're not being seen. Then came a very powerful lesson. And that was, what is wrong with being small? Of course I asked, what do you, this is all in meditation, no plant medicine, nothing, this is just meditation. What is wrong with being small? And by the way, I tried multiple meditations, but you have to try a few things before you get something that truly resonates with you. I said, yeah, you know, I don't know, it's just the way I feel. And then I got a vision during that meditation. I saw a hummingbird, of which, by the way, we have a lot in the garden. These days I've been seeing like 4 or 5 dancing and going all crazy. And I was reminded of the fact that, yeah, a hummingbird is a small animal, but somehow we feel such a greatness when we view it. Here in the Caribbean or other parts of South America, that small animal is painted large all over the walls. Heck, even I have it right here in the back of the wall. Why? If I'm not mistaken, it's one of the national animals of Colombia, a sign for freedom. You will find that a lot of indigenous traditions, they have the hummingbird or the condor or the eagle, but specifically the hummingbird quite often as a spiritual symbol for spiritual growth, spiritual power, even though it's just a small little bird. And that made me realize that I need to be humble and be okay with the fact that at times I feel small. This sounds like a whole different story maybe to some than what we talked about last time, but really it isn't. It's just the same thing. It's You notice the trigger, you go inside, and then you don't push away the emotion. I notice that I'm with a group of men, for example, and I go, oh, like this, blah, blah. Even if it's unconscious or conscious, it's a trigger because my behavior changes from something that's authentic. In that moment, I have to catch myself, become aware, sit the fuck down, be quiet, go inside. That's what I really should do. And then be okay with the fact that right now I feel intimidated, I feel unseen, I feel small, and it doesn't matter what I say, I might not get heard. And if I can sit with that without trying to push it away or fight it, I'm reprogramming my nervous system and body, allowing it to become a release. Well, if you can commit to that, at the same time you're working on your inner child. Because that's what children were supposed to be taught as well when they were small. And usually, the reason we also disconnect from inner child is that doesn't happen. You get angry, shut up. So you're not allowed to sit with that feeling. It's not allowed to come to an expression. If you're crying, stop crying. Don't be such a wuss. Mm-hmm. If you're afraid, they'll tell you, oh, there's nothing to be afraid for. Like your fear is irrelevant. You're just hallucinating. They make it so, but for you in that moment, it's very real. So we call it cutting the roots of children. Mm-hmm. And many parents do it unconsciously without knowing. So I think that's a great way, you want to bring out that inner child more into your daily life. You want to give it more expression, but you cannot do it outside. You have to go inside, find some way, whatever it may be, plant medicine, meditation, visualization, or how you call when somebody sits down and the person talks to you and guides you through it. They use it for psychology sometimes.
Like hypnosis?
Yes, hypnosis.
Oh, yeah.
Doesn't matter what you do. Just find something that works, stick to it, and just keep working through the process up until the moment that your inner child is okay with you again. Mm-hmm. Because many people walk around with a fucked up relationship between the inner child. Mm-hmm. The inner child isn't some symbolic version of your past. No. I've come to learn that, especially here in the tradition of South America, and traditional Curanderismo, that it's a very dominant and strong force of energy. It's the seed of your soul. So if you can reconnect with that, it's not just, oh, I'm reconnected with my inner child. No.
I think that's the way that a lot of people see it, actually.
Yeah, no, you're reconnecting with something way bigger. There's a reason that Jesus said to people, the only way into the kingdom of the Father is through the heart, and he only lets the children of his creation enter, or something like that. Mm-hmm. Right? There's a reason he said that. And it's true. It's the childlike people who feel the divine around them all the time. So it's way bigger like that than that. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So if we get me as an example, I thought that my inner child was like very strong and she was doing fine and whatever, and I did multiple meditations and stuff, and I was like, yeah, no, she's so strong, she's so brave, how did she get through those things? And then I came to you, and during one of my healings you were like, there's a mask, and I saw it and I was like, fuck yeah, there is a mask. And it was only then that I found out she was not okay.
Yeah.
How can you try to like get it a little bit more straight for yourself? Because I don't think that is something I would have figured out myself, because I was so like thinking that it was okay.
Yeah. I fully understand that. Well, we as human beings have a tendency to look for the pink colors in the sky and not the dirt below our feet. So that being said, not only do you need to have a critical eye when you try to engage with your inner child, But you also have to ask the question of where did it go wrong? What are you carrying that I haven't released for you? What is your pain that you're still holding on to? Those are the questions you need to ask. Because many people have the experience that, oh, my inner child is so happy and bubbly, and then they come into a ceremony and they experience that, oh, that's not the case. Even though maybe in life that, they are very bubbly and happy, blah, blah, and sometimes, yes, that's a mask. Sometimes that's not true. It's just a way of showing the world that they're not in pain, to be safe inside. See, for example, if you come from a family that's very abusive, and the only way you have to that you have to survive in that household is by pretending that you're okay. Because mind you, you're not allowed to get angry, you're not allowed to cry, you're not allowed to feel fear. So what are the other options? The other options are just to crack a joke, keep smiling, and keep moving forward. So if you keep doing that from a young age, and that's going to become the first mask that you're wearing all throughout life, which can cause you to think, oh, my inner child is fine because I'm smiling and joking. Men have this a lot. Men are very good at this. I know so many men who come in, smiling, cracking jokes, and then once you enter ceremony, you get to look inside their body and energy, you're like, oh my God, it's black as hell in here. Because they have learned to adjust themselves based on the norms of society. You have to keep smiling, you have to keep pretending, So it's very important that you ask the questions that are too painful to ask. I know that there's a knife in you. Doesn't mean your inner child isn't beautiful. That she isn't powerful, because she is. Your inner child is beautiful and she is powerful, but she also has pain. And there is a knife poking her in the back. So you have to be prepared to ask both questions. Yeah. I want to add to that. It's not even your inner child, by the way. It goes in with all relationships. You can be in the most horrible relationship that you have to get out of. I mean, how many women experience this? That they're with some son of a bitch who's abusing them, hitting them, blah, blah. Every sane person would tell that woman, you need to leave him. Probably all the friends and family members are saying it, but they just say, but he has such a good heart, and I see his potential. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. Looking at one side of the coin. You need to be neutral, want to view both sides. Yeah.
And then, I don't want to use the word correct, but what do you think is the best way to engage to your inner child? What's the best way to talk to it? Because you said earlier that there's a way that you shouldn't be talking to it, because that's the way that other people also were talking to it. What is the better version of that?
Assume nothing.
Mm-hmm.
No expectations. Because the first thing that's always going to come up in a meditation or visualization, whatever, is your expectation. Even in the ceremonies we do, the first thing you're always confronted with are your expectations. So if you want to see the truth, you have to let go of that and be fully open-minded and be like, show me all of you. I am not afraid to get hurt, and I won't judge, which is a very important one. Not just judging your inner child, but also judging yourself. Because oftentimes when people reconnect with their inner child and they see the trauma, they see the pain and the grief and the loneliness, they blame themselves. They go like, oh, I forgot you, and I've almost let you drown, or I've forsaken you, They take the blame immediately onto themselves, and then, it's like almost like they pull out the knife and then stab themselves. And that's something you also shouldn't do. You need to be as neutral as possible, and just almost like a doctor, and you're trying to extract a tumor. It has to have precision. We're like, okay, what are the things here that I need to see, that I need to release? And then, try and navigate through that. But constant repetition of yourself, no judgment. Be open-minded. I'm open to see whatever I need to see and feel.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
How do you know if it's working?
Usually when a shit ton of emotion comes up. Yeah. Because it's almost like opening a channel and then screaming to whatever's down there, come up, come up. I won't judge. And if there's a monster down there who you've been afraid your whole life of seeing it, so you taught it to stay down there, it's not gonna come up if you judge it. You have to kind of prove to your body, to your heart, to your energy. Doesn't matter what I see and feel about myself, I'm okay and I'm capable of handling it. And don't forget, the universe is always listening. Every thought you're sending out, it's listening. So if you keep repeating it often enough, things are going to just happen in life. You're going to start attracting things that are going to put you straight and help open up that dimension for you. I mean, the same thing goes for, real healing. You have to have this attitude of, and like I said, healing begins with yourself first and foremost, way before you end up at the door of a healer or ceremony or retreat or whatever. It's you that makes the choice that I don't care what the hell comes up, I'm ready to face it. And then suddenly, you get this notification of an ad of a retreat, or I don't know, is somebody sharing coupons about this crazy channeling festival, and you go there and you have this crazy ass release and you don't know why, you're just crying all day. Things are going to start falling on your path, but you have to make the decision that I'm okay with being fucked up. Because that's the reason your inner child was hurting in the first place.
Mm-hmm.
You never allowed yourself to be fucked up.
Does it get easier once you maintain it, or is it like still hard daily work?
No, I think once you've met your inner child in its full capacity, you're there. I would say you're there. Yeah. But you've made promises along the way that you weren't going to do this again or that again. So it's more about sticking to those promises, not breaking them. So for me, it was, okay, if I enter into space, can I be okay with being nobody? In the past, I was like, I have such a great ability to speak in front of like groups of people and share, and there's something that just awakens in me. And my ego took it and went like, you could be like the new Tony Robbins, Well, my inner child really toned that down a notch for me. And we're like, no, you need to calm down. That's not your choice.
Okay.
You need to see whatever's going to happen on your path, and that's what you need to stick to. Which caused me to do things entirely differently. Because now if I come in front of a group, I'm not trying to prove them anything, which in the past was the case all the time. This is my point. This is my how you say, the research that I did, and this is what I'm here to tell you, and you have to believe it. And if someone in the group dared to go against it, I was like, no, you're wrong, because I checked, blah, 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 blah. Now it's totally different. Now I go in front of a group, and the first thing I always do is just silence. I just observe the group, and I start cracking some jokes, just to get everyone comfortable, have them laughing a little bit, to really try to connect with their inner child first. And then I'm going to start talking from my experience. I keep saying, but if you feel something else or it doesn't resonate, let me know. Let me hear your story. And the only way for me to do that was to remind myself of I'm no one. I remember that was a mantra for me for a long time. I wrote it on my mirror in the bathroom, so that every morning when I woke up and I looked in the mirror, the first thing I'd see was, I am no one. It's quite funny, right? You're trying to become your authentic self by teaching yourself, by reminding yourself that you have to don't try to be anything. It's quite like the teachings of Buddha. If you want to become enlightened, don't try to become anything, don't try to do anything or change anything, just be. Well, I had to catch myself all the time, You go to the supermarket, there's a pretty lady there, and all of a sudden, I'm Mr. Charm. No, you catch yourself. No. No need for talking and conversation. I am Mr. No One. pay my groceries, go home in silence. And there's a voice in my head going, how can you do this? How can you live like this? There's nothing exciting about this. But there's another voice that says, well done. You proved to yourself that you have nothing to prove. The silence is fine. And if you keep doing that often enough, I experienced peace. Up until the moment where I have clients right now, if they come for a program or a retreat, I've witnessed so many times in my life, because before doing this, I studied with different healers. And I always noticed that they were trying to entertain the patient for their, repertoire. And
You're the least entertaining person.
yeah, I know. And my mother also.
Yeah, true.
And because we had to go through the process of we're not here for entertainment. Our job on this planet is not to entertain anyone. We can help if you have problems and if you're ready to receive the help. That's what it's all about. And if we grow a relationship throughout that process where you get to see more of me and I get to see more of you, that's beautiful. But the moment you come and I feel like I have to entertain you, then it's a business. It's just a business.
Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't feel like your mom had to really go through some sort of teaching, but that's because I know her, like the down to earth person she is.
No, she did not go through that because this is something she was trying to teach me my whole life, but I wasn't ready for it. I had to find it on my own. And I think the part of me being abandoned from my inner child in the past did not have to do so much with my mom, because I was always more okay being myself with women than with men. In fact, if I look back at my school years and stuff, I probably had like 2 or 3 guy friends and like 10 different girls that I would hang out with and talk with. So that goes to show that there was a wound regarding my father, of me having trouble to connect with men. In fact, when I was with other men, that's when my unconscious triggers would come up, my walls would come up, and I would start to portray a version of myself that's not authentic. That's the opposite of my inner child. So, my parents went through a divorce, and I had a great relationship with my father. In fact, I still think that when we were together, when my parents were together and my father was in the picture, he was the best dad a child could wish for. He was amazing. He would pick us up from school and then put on a movie, and then we dress up as the characters in the movie, and then reenact the scene in the movie. And sometimes it was pirates, and sometimes it was Lord of the Rings, and he would play Elvis Presley, and then dance with us in the kitchen, and then show us the moves, and he teaches about food. When he'd go to the gym in the evening, he wouldn't say me time. No, he'd just take me to the gym, put me on his back with the weight, squat, and then show off about it. So he was a great dad. But the killer was that when they divorced, the radio went quiet. There was no contact, no emails, no phone calls, no nothing. And I think as a child, when you go through that, and mind you, I was like 9 years old or something, it's suddenly as half of you is just being ripped. Because as a child, you don't have an understanding of your own identity yet. It's fully ingrained into the identity of your mother and your father. So when that fell apart, suddenly you have an identity shift and you don't know who you are anymore. And you have to find a way to cope with that. I think many people experience this, whether it's their mother leaving or their father leaving or whatever it might have been. So, which was the reason for me to then, put up a show and always act tougher and stronger towards men. Because on the surface of all that behavior was just one thing. A small boy wanting to prove to his father that he's a strong boy, that he's a strong kid. And it took years to unravel that and talk to my inner child and be okay with that, and then forgive my father and then be okay with how he is, and try to reshape my patterns and become conscious of the beliefs and coping mechanism that I created and canceled them out, and then return to silence and It's a whole journey. Yeah. And you have to be fully committed to wanting to find those answers, wanting to go through your own shit to make that reconnection with your inner child. Because I sincerely believe if you decide in your heart that this is what I want to do, I want to become my authentic self. And I know many people say, I want to become the best version of myself. Actually, there's no becoming, it's just returning. Because the best version of yourself is already inside. It's your inner child waiting for you to clean up your shit. Because he will show you the way, always, what was meant for you, what you like, what you don't like. And there's a reason children, they're born, and then you have this one kid who plays the piano amazing, like it was Beethoven in his last life. But then some traumatic events happen, and then they stop playing. Suddenly they want to prove to the world that they are a millionaire and have like I don't know, so many wives and blah blah, because they've watched too many Andrew Tate videos. And they're saying, I'm just focusing on becoming the best version of myself. Well, maybe if those things didn't happen to you, you would have been an amazing pianist, touring all around the world, seeing different countries. And your inner child is in there waiting for you to still accomplish that goal. But you're too busy being distracted by your pain.
Do you think that you had like a turning point of where you knew like, oh, or did it like gradually transform over time?
With my inner child?
Yeah.
I think the biggest moment for me was when my youth made sense and it just clicked, So when I was younger, yeah, I had the ability to see things that most people can't see, or feel things that most people can feel. So as I was quite a disturbed young person, and I would get bullied at school a lot because of this.
How old were you when it started?
No, this was throughout my whole youth. I think it got a lot less when my parents divorced. And I had to go live in a different country, and you have the culture shock, and then you go to a different school, and that's when it really toned down a lot, because your body's cramping up. Your gifts aren't flowing anymore. You're in a state of trauma. And but before that, it was as long as I can remember. But like I said, it caused me to be bullied at school a lot, so I was kind of a loner. Even in the place where we lived, I had no friends. At least not human friends. I had my room full of different animals, like you name it, I had them, from insects to like these big bugs, all types of different fish and reptiles and amphibians, plants in between each of them. If you ask my mother right now, she would probably tell you I had a zoo in the house, and that was my fascination. I poured my love into that. So, I was a child that was seeing things all the time. I had an immense obsession with nature, that outside wasn't enough. I want nature to sleep with me in the same room. And I had an immense fascination with dragons. I love drawing. And most of the time I was drawing three things. Animals, because I love animals. The things I was seeing, which I can show you a few pictures, they're quite scary. Because if I saw, so to say, good spirits, then okay. But if I saw bad spirits, especially always close to people, then that would really, startle me, and I couldn't sleep. And then the way for me to clear it out of my system was to draw it. The third thing was dragons. I drew dragons, I painted dragons, I like dragon movies, just like my daughter. We're quite the same in that front. And these things were always like a question mark for me. And at some point I entered into my first ceremony, and the first thing that happened was I was in pitch black, and then out of the distance I saw this movement, like a snake-like being, and it started very close. And it came closer and closer and closer and closer and closer and closer. And as it came closer, it became bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. And at some point the colors changed into a black type structure, and the colors sometimes glancing over it. And that structure was as big as a house, and I could feel how it grasped me and was holding on to me. And I looked up and I saw these two big eyes, and I realized it's a dragon. And I'd seen that dragon before, sometimes in dreams or when I had nightmares that a dragon would come and save me. It was the same nightmare each time, or the same dragon each time. This one time I was outside after a party and I took some drugs I shouldn't have taken. And I remember feeling like shit, so I did some breath work, and all of a sudden, while I was doing the breath work, I saw this big dragon in front of me, and I felt so small that I just bent over, immediately put my hand on the floor, and I said, I humble myself to you. And that was the last time I saw a dragon. And then 2 years later, I did the ceremony. So I saw the dragon again, holding me, squeezing me, and I felt like I was gonna die, and a fear came over my body. And the healer at the time said to me, you have to embrace your fear because you're afraid of your own power. When he said that, that was my life-changing moment. It clicked. And I realized from a young boy being obsessed with dragons, that my whole youth led me to that moment. I realized that. And then I did the same thing that I did last time. I said, I humble myself to you, I accept you. And then the dragon came in me. So yeah, I think that was a moment that made me realize my experience as a child throughout life. You know, my crazy view on life and the connection I had with certain things and my capacity to see things other people. The dragon, that moment was for me just, I can't even explain it. I want to try it, but I cannot. Yeah.
That's when it clicked.
That's when it clicked.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But, you know, it was a click moment, but that didn't mean the work was done.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, healing my inner child began then. Right the moment when the dragon entered me and I had that click moment, memories started coming up from, you know, the things I did to other people, things that people did to me, and my fears, my insecurity. Just it was almost like the dragon was moving through me and showing me all the garbage I was carrying.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't recall making explicitly contact with my inner child, but that part was a lot about my youth and how I lost that spark, you know, that you have as a child.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
If we go back a little bit and we talk about entertaining other people, like you and your mom are so grounded, and especially your mom, like she is not going to do anything extra if she doesn't have to. She will not move a muscle in her face if she doesn't feel like it.
Yeah.
What does that say
Which
about...
could be a challenge if you're her son.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it's really... for the most people that come here.
She really taught me to have no expectations.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What does that tell people about her and her inner child and the connection that she has with that?
I think for her it was also different. Because she had a very, very difficult childhood. And the things that she went through were so inhumane that life, you suddenly view it through a different lens. You know? She's, especially in the past, when I was younger, she would have this view of, you know, most people, their problems aren't real problems. And in a way, she was right, you know, because she would always say, as long as you have a roof above your head, you have food on the table, and you have people who love you, you're rich. You have nothing to complain about. Stop complaining, start doing the work. And that's all she'd say. And I think, you know, living from that perspective, from such a young age, because you've been through so many things, you kind of like automatically don't feel the need to entertain other people, their expectations, because you can look through the bullshit and see exactly what's really important here. She has lived in a survival mode throughout her younger years, you know, being a child. So that was always her aim. What needs to happen right now for my survival? And in a way that has shaped her mind in such a way that even though now she's healed, she still views the world and people in that way. She still views it like, okay, I don't care about your blah 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 blah. She doesn't listen to the stories you tell. She just watches how you formulate the words, what are your facial expressions, what is the energy you're giving off. And that's something she had to learn because of trauma, because of her past. But now it has become her greatest power. And that's the language she's speaking with you, even though you're speaking Dutch or English or Spanish. And I think, you know, when you've really mastered that skill, you quickly come to the realization that doesn't matter what a person says, inside is a whole different story. So she's not entertaining, she's listening, she's watching, she's observing. And it can go two ways. Either way, she's gonna tell you, if you're willing to listen what she has to say, so you can work on it, so you can change it, so you can evolve. Or you're not ready, and she already knows if you're not ready, and she just says nothing. Because she has no desire for filling the air with more air. She has more important things to do. She's very conservative also with her energy, I think. That's something my mom is very great in. What do I feed my energy into? And like I said, because she comes from a certain past, if a person comes talking about this and blah and blue and blee, she is like, do I have to give energy into this? No, doesn't benefit me whatsoever. So I'm not gonna. Okay, thank you for explaining. And then she goes and does her thing. So, you know, yes, it gives a sense of groundedness. In a way, I would also like to call it freedom. Yeah. Yeah. Good answer?
Yeah, it's a good answer.
Yeah.
I think that everyone who gets to meet her can see that she's so special, especially in this way. Like,
Yeah.
it's so inspiring to see her like engage with other people, the way she talks, the way she moves, like
Yeah.
it's so special.
Yeah. She has this sword that just cuts through the bullshit real quick.
Same as you said the other day, that she has this ability to like get everyone. It doesn't matter like who she has in front of her.
Yeah.
She'll say something and I'll be like, okay.
Yeah.
If that's what needs to be done.
She's commander of the ship.
Yeah.
100%.
Yeah.
She's commander of the ship. And I think, and I've always found that very beautiful as well, because at some point, you know, as a man, maybe women have this too, I can't say, but as a man, I went searching for power. I want to be powerful in life. Especially, I want to be a powerful man of, you know, capacity, of potential. And once I went through my healing journey, that view of power changed. And I realized, wow, the most powerful person I've ever known has always been there in my life, and that's my mom. Because no one is more authentic than her. She never lies. I've never, ever caught my mom telling a lie. She is either truth or she is silence. But her silence already speaks volumes. So at some point I realized, like, that's true power. Oh my God, how do I do that? And like I said, then you go through the whole journey of going inside and watching the triggers and who are you and taking off the mask and reconnecting with the inner child and stop proving yourself to that whole washing machine that you go through. Yeah. Um, and I realized, hey, I've actually never in my life seen someone do this with my mother.
Mm-hmm.
Make her smaller than she is.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something honestly I cannot say for anyone that I know in my life. I know everyone I've ever met always had this person in their life that was able to maybe like manipulate them, or put up an ego against them, or have like narcissistic behavior against them, or no, with my mom I've never experienced that. I've seen very big, rich, wealthy men pull up in like a Ferrari in front of the house because they're coming to do a healing because their wife sent them. They don't feel it's necessary. They got their life under control. But obviously the wife thinks the opposite, because otherwise the wife wouldn't send them to come here. And then, I see their behavior once they're in front of the door. They have the aura speaks volumes. So I have learned to do the opposite now. I don't try to make myself bigger. I try to make myself smaller. I become Jao Yachai. The old grandpa in me, that's all loving and all wise, but mostly quiet. And I say, hi, nice to meet you. Follow me. And we go to, maybe it's the healing room for therapy, or the maloka for the ceremony, or maybe they're going to go to an intake and whatever. But my whole energy is different. And then they tone it down as well. They don't feel the need to make a show anymore, to prove themselves. Because I had that, I recognize it now in them. But I also observe how my mother does it. My mother, I still can't explain what she does. But what she usually gets with these men is that she just reaches a hand and says hi. Or sometimes she doesn't give a hand at all, which now that she's become older has become more frequent. She just puts the hand together and says hi. And then you have this moment where they want to try and show off to her. This always happens, especially with wealthy men when they have a lot of money or like status, or sometimes we have politicians that come here, they great stories of what they've done. And my mother always pulls this face. She does. And when she pulls that face, you can see a giant of a man crumbling. And when they go, the humility with which they go is, I think, a miracle in of itself. Yeah, and so far I've only seen her be able to pull that off with just a face. It's quite astonishing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
People, I think we're gonna wrap it up. Okay. This was the second episode of Q&A, and thank you for watching. If you have any other questions you would like me to answer, drop them below in the comments, and I sure will. Ciao.